This Sunday night, the first round of the UFA playoffs conclude with Chicago and Madison colliding for a spot in the Central Division Final. The Radicals ready to rock in front of their loyal fans, and the Union looking to spoil the party at Breese-Stevens Field. Opening poll set for 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 o'clock Central. Broadcast exclusively on WatchUFA.tv.
It feels like we're 7 inches from the midday sun here on the Isthmus in Madison, Wisconsin. It is hot, and that is appropriate for the matchup we have here today at Breese-Stevens Field between the 6-4 Chicago Union and the 6-4 home team Madison Radicals. Hello, everyone. I am Adam Ruffner, and I'm joined by a very special guest in the booth here tonight, blowing in from Windy City himself, Chris Pennant, longtime Chicago analyst, PA, and recent broadcast edition for the Union. Chris, we've got a fantastic matchup here tonight in the Central Division. Ostensibly the 2 seed and a home game playoff matchup on the line for whoever takes the W here.
Exactly, and you ask both of these coaches, they're going to say it's just another game. But we know better. That Chicago-Madison rivalry stretching back at least a few years in the last 4 or 5 seasons. And after a down year last year, both of these teams rounding into form nicely at a critical time in the 2024 season. There's
a lot at stake here tonight, and let's get right into it for this critical Central Division matchup. The winner controls their destiny, and we have that word controls in parentheses, or excuse me, quotations, because there are still so many head-to-head matchups that have to take place within the Central. Everything is a virtual possibility and at play for these 2 and 3 seeds in the division.
Yeah, the rock and roll division is what I like to call the Central. Minnesota has cleared. They're going to be hosting that home playoff game as the 1 seed, and now you have Madison, Chicago, Pittsburgh, and Indianapolis in the mix. So for these 2 teams with the best records after Minnesota, this W means a whole lot.
Minnesota will be doing battle against New York tonight in the Super Series, but here we'll be talking about the Union's return star, Jeff Weiss.
Yeah, Jeff Weiss had an uneven start to the season, 18 turnovers in his first 4 games. In his last 4 games, only 4 turnovers and only 2 drops and throwaways. His completion rate is above 98%, and he's going to be key in that handler stack for the Union tonight.
And for the Radicals, who else but the league leader in goals scored, Anthony Gumby Gutowski. He set the Radicals' single-season goals record just last weekend, had 7 in a crucial home win over Pittsburgh. He's been the undeniable spark plug and playmaking leader for this team in just his 2nd year in the association. Gutowski has kind of been everything and more. He shows off a top gear consistently that just allows him to make impact plays when the team needs him on both offense and defense. As I mentioned at the top of this, he does lead the league in goals scored. He's also one of the team leaders in takeaways. He gets it done anywhere on the field.
Number 3 in the league in plus-minus, and that's such an important stat. But when you look at it with a league where we have such stars on both coasts, for not only a second-year player to be leading the league in goals and that high in plus-minus, but from a Midwest Division team, it's really incredible what he's been able to do.
We're not used to a whole bunch of individual goal-scoring production here at Madison. Gutowski has been a revelation in his first 2 seasons. We've got a fantastic matchup again here tonight, folks. We're really excited you've tuned in with us. It's a gorgeous, hot summer night, a fantastic opportunity to tune in for some Friday night Ultimate Frisbee coming up next.
This Sunday night, the first round of the UFA playoffs conclude with Chicago and Madison colliding for a spot in the Central Division Final. The Radicals ready to rock in front of their loyal fans, and the Union looking to spoil the party at Breese-Stevens Field. Opening poll set for 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 o'clock Central. Broadcast exclusively on WatchUFA.tv.
Welcome, Frisbee fans. We are just moments away from the opening pull here as Madison gets set to start on defense. The visitors from Chicago taking over in those pristine white kits for their first offensive possession here. Dremen will take the first centering pass and get it up quickly to John Lithiow. It's been so central in this first season with Chicago. They're finding a streaking Wilson Matthews, really putting on the Jets to track that down. and an early fast break opportunity for the Union, picking right back up where they left off last weekend, scoring 25 in Minnesota against the reigning division champion Shanahan, getting Wilson Matthews quickly for the opening score.
At Martin Stadium, the wind is so unpredictable. Chicago loves to throw those hucks, but you don't see them do it that early in the clock. That time, as soon as John Lithio caught that disc, Wilson Matthews was in his car heading towards the end zone, and he chased down a disc that hung very nicely for him, and Chicago was able to complete the opening score.
We talked about it off air coming into this game. The amount of crucial new additions for the Chicago team has been such a boon for the Union. Obviously, Chicago has enjoyed a consistent amount of success. They're looking to make their 5th straight playoff appearance in 2024, but players like John Lithiow and their Wilson Matthews have been absolutely instrumental in Chicago, looking like a pretty dark horsey contender here as we round into the final 2 weekends of the regular season.
Well, I talked to Coach Dave Woods, and he said that he knew that it was going to be difficult with so much turnover coming into the season. But those players that you mentioned, as well as Jake Rubin Miller, have really come into form. He said their last 2 games have been their best 2 games of the season.
Wilson Matthews leads the Union coming into this game in total goals. Top 20 in the entire league this year. As Madison's opening offensive possession moves towards midfield, Shrywise quarterbacking once again in the center of this offensive formation. He's been darn near perfect, and there, close contest by the rookie Nate Astrom on Gutowski. That's a matchup we're going to want to watch all night long.
Definitely. I was just going to say it, Adam. Look for Astrom and Gutowski, number 6 in green and blue and number 12 in white.
Little pitch and catch here. Nothing too fancy on the Radicals' opening drive as Luo tries a pump fake out of the defender, looking for Sample right on the doorstep. He'll get rewarded following his own throw. And the Radicals with the early equalizer.
Victor Lois, he's so steady. And when he gets the disc in the middle of the field in that attacking portion of near the end zone, that's when Madison is absolutely at its best, because he can make throws to either hand, and he always makes the right throw.
And here we have some real big news. First point since 2022 for longtime Madison Radicals legend Kevin Pettit-Scantling making his return off of injury. It was doubtful as to whether he would even return this season, possibly missing his 2nd entire year within the association, but 7th all-time in blocks, one of the league leaders in games played, finally back on the pitch here at historic Breeze Stevens Field.
It's so much fun watching KPS play. There's just hardly anything else that you have to say.
Ooh, and a miscommunication there between Lithiow and Drummond gives the Radicals opportunity, and they easily convert within just 3 throws to take their first lead of the night and punch in their first break score.
You know, not necessarily caused by Pettit-Scantling, but he was on the thrower for that miscue, Drummond. And it looked like Drummond was the one cutting in when the thrower thought he was going to cut towards the sideline. So already the veteran making his presence felt.
I'm going to go ahead and say that was like an aura block for KPS. He's gotten so many legit ones in this league. We can give him one just kind of pressuring and being back there in the handler space. I mean, you look at that main tonight. It's almost got kind of a mullet thing going on with that hair.
I was going to say he's the lion. He's the wizened lion.
Oh, absolutely.
We've seen him with hats. We've seen him without hats, but I think the most impressive thing is me being able to get on the field and just see like how much size he has and understanding that the man can run like he does.
He's a big boy, not afraid to throw his body around out there whatsoever. And almost a coffin corner pull there from Madison's defense, but it just skirts out the back of the end zone. Drummond will pick up at the brick mark in the middle of the field. And Drummond's having an absolute career year for the Union. One of the best deep throwers in the entire association. He's got that huge backhand that he can just kind of access almost anywhere and with infinite range. And here he carves a nice flick into space for a wide open Weiss. Chicago making it look easy on 2 of their first 3 offensive possessions.
We talked about Martin Stadium, and this is the first year for the Union at the stadium in Evanston, and Coach Woods and the team have said that the winds off the lakefront can be very challenging, and as a result, the Union are actually better on the road than they are at home this year. And you can see that with the lighter wind here, the more open space, they're getting up the field quickly.
And here we have the keys to the game for the visitors. 9 goals to win and road laborers. Chris, do you want to kind of walk us through those?
Yeah, you know, it could go either way, but when the Union have been successful this year, they've scored at least 9 goals and a half. They've only had 1 loss when they've scored at least 9 goals, and that 1 loss was at the Horn in Indianapolis. And as I said, they're better on the road than at home, 4-1 so far this year, with one of those wins, a big one last week against Minnesota.
Madison's pull also going out of bounds. They'll be able to center it on the brick mark.
Just kind of hanging up, going towards the right side of the field on your TV screen.
Brian Hart taking over the opening throw. He's been absent for several games, nursing a foot injury. And Sample, the big man, going up into space. It's hard to contest him when he can reel it in overhead. Stands at 6'8", and Luo cashes in the fast break score to Jack Nelson. And a nice back and forth rhythm. We've got 5 goals in the first less than 4 minutes of game clock.
Yeah, this one's going at an absolutely frenetic pace. Did you see what the Radicals did right there, Adam? As soon as Sample got that one, he turned and looked for Luo in the middle of the field, and he was the one who got the assist on the goal.
One of the things that's been kind of a stagnation point for this Radicals offense over the past several seasons is its ability to find continuation movement. They often get that release cut as Sample there does downfield, but a lot of times their throwers kind of have to turn, look for a reset, and it really can cut into what they're looking to do. But there you saw a really smooth transition. Luo following the action quickly, providing that reset opportunity. And here for the Radicals' keys to the game, we'll get to those in just a moment. Chicago and Drummond taking over in the center of the field. Madison putting on a bit of a double team. You'll also notice out there running around in the number 15 jersey in blue, Kai DiLorenzo. Team did not expect him to be back this year, but we'll take a break from that to report that Wilson Matthews gets the score and the quick response for Chicago. Couldn't even get through that real quick anecdote about the return to DiLorenzo before the Union offense scores once again.
We talked about Anthony Gutowski and how his 44 goals are leading the league, but Wilson Matthews has been a rare find for the Union this year. He's had multiple 3-goal games, and he's got 2 tonight already in the first quarter of play. And as you said, Adam, we're not even 6 minutes into this one.
Not even 6 minutes in, 2 goals, over 100 yards receiving. I'm not good at math, but that's putting him on pace for 10 goals, 500 yards. Seems a little unsustainable, but to your point about Matthews, he's been such a consistent field cutter on this team and has really started to emerge as he's gotten more comfortable in the system as just a plain wide receiver 1 for the Union.
Yeah, I've watched him all season long, and it's just kind of one of those Mahomes to Tyreek Hill situations. Wilson's down there somewhere when the Union need a throw, when they need a safety valve, or when they've got the long pull set up, the long hook.
He's like Gutowski in that he just has that closing speed in the disc that makes it so hard for the defense to keep up. Speaking of, though, Madison moving almost immediately within attacking position themselves. Just outside of the red zone here, Shrywise in the center of the field. That's exactly where the Radicals want the disc in this position. He's completing over 98% of his throws. Briefly retired there for a season and a half, but can't keep the longtime Radicals member off the field. Same with Hart here. Sample knocking on the doorstep. Radicals have found so much success this season blending together their veteran play with emerging young stars. And here you see it working through this kind of sticky possession. Sjogren on the mark. Great bend not break defense, but Hart carving a hammer over the top to a wide open nickel in the pocket corner of the end zone. And that was really the first kind of sturdy defensive coverage possession we've seen all night long from either team.
I was going to say that one took about, what, a minute of time for Madison to get up the field, and considering what we've had so far tonight, that one took ages, but a very nice, calm, as you said, offensive possession from Madison, and some good defense from Chicago there. There were a couple times where Cutter broke towards the corner of the end zone, but Chicago was able to double and prevent the throw until they got that hammer over the top. And that's always such a great throw, when you can get that hammer or the fade to the weak side corner.
And while you might not be as familiar with Brian Hart's game as in years past, if you're just tuning in here, he will not hesitate to throw that over-the-top hammer pretty much anywhere within the half-field line. Speaking of somebody with range, Shanahan testing Matthews out against Marks. Marks putting body into him. Matthews returning the favor, but Marks getting a very key swat into deep space, getting rewarded by the fans.
One of the keys to the game for the Radicals, they have one of the best defensive line conversion rates in the entire UFA. Turnovers usually mean scores when they're able to get a turnover, and they already have a 1-goal lead here. And a nice saving play from Sterling Kanaki to keep this one alive.
Leap forth, probing the back shoulder there, threw it without Sterling even seeing the initial read on the disc. But like you say, fantastic read and save there from the longtime vet. Carrico now taking over just over 30 yards out, back to Marks in the center of the field. Carrico, Marks, and McCarthy. McCarthy's been kind of the killer that punches in a lot of these breaks. Trails only Kai Marcus on the team. And total completed hucks there. Robert looking for Kanaki into space. That's the second break, folks. And a 2-goal Radicals lead as we go past the midway point in the first quarter.
2 chances, 2 conversions. They're at 100% on the night. And in games like these, where these teams are so well matched, 2 goals, it'll come back likely. But 2 goals can mean the difference, even this early.
The Radicals have been the picture of perfection so far. 0 turnovers, a block, 3 of 3 on offense, and 2 of 2 on D-line conversions for the home team. I was talking with head coach Tim DeBile earlier this week, and they have a really interesting meta approach to the season this year. They recognize that their strength is their defense. They're getting back to their roots and what built the history of this Radicals program. And how they're doing that is actually by being slightly more aggressive on offense, really pushing other teams to match their pace of play and say, hey, you want more possessions against our defense? That's fine. We're second in the league in break rate. We'll pile up a whole bunch of scores. And that's exactly what you're seeing. I mean, this is a Radicals team that scored under almost 18 a game for the past few seasons. They're almost at 22 per in 2024.
That's an incredible turnaround. And we know the struggles that Madison has had in the last couple seasons. And talking with Coach DeBile at the beginning, this is the time of the year when club season starts and you have some issues with personnel and rostering. But I think the buy-in that both of these teams have gotten from their players, from their rosters, is very good. And you see it on display in the quality that we have tonight.
And it's why both teams are contending for that all-important second seed in the Central Division. As we mentioned at the top of the broadcast, Minnesota having already clinched the first seed. And a little bit of a fracas there. Priest looking for the foul on the step through. Some boo birds coming out of the crowd. Really great fan support here in the middle part of July at Breeze Stevens Field. Fans still filtering in through the gates. It's the capital city of Ultimate for a reason. And while you'd like to say it's for the quality of play on the field, it's really because of the fantastic fans and overall Ultimate Frisbee support within the city and community. And they love their Radicals as Astrom carves up a great pass, but it's bobbled out of bounds. Seems to be a little bit of a hesitation there. I don't know why, as Johnson was not able to secure possession whatsoever until he was several yards past the pylons.
Yeah, the Frisbee's hanging up, going towards the right side of the screen, and that one hung just a bit long and floated towards the sideline, and Jesse Johnson could not get both hands on it in time to secure it.
So if you're a first-time tuning in watch member here at Breeze Stevens Field, that is the chaos corner of this field. Wind sneaks into there and makes discs do crazy things, but that right there is about as easy as a 1-2 connection as you can get for another break score. Jack Kelly finding Mr. Mechanix for the 3-goal lead, and there's a little bit of momentum here for Madison.
Yeah, Chicago saw that one on that coffin corner, and they put 3 defenders on the disc. And Kevin Pettit-Scantling, as he is wont to do, immediately went out about 10 or 15 yards and threw his hands up right on the sideline, because everybody for Chicago was arranged in that diagonal defensive stack going back towards the middle of the field. And once they got the release throw, there was nobody who could come up and challenge.
KPS may have missed almost 2 seasons worth of action on the field, but he's been diligently participating on the sideline, operating as a kind of assistant coach through all of the wins and losses for the Radicals since he's last been a player. Get back to that in a second as Lithio finding a release valve deep. Chicago's best offensive possessions seem to be when they can establish this deep ball. Drummond trying to get the reset slipping, but it looks like there will be a call as well. But on Matthews, he'll be able to march the disc off. Be right on the goal line, trying to punch this in for a crucial Chicago hold.
Yeah, this is an important red zone conversion. And the Union, you know, kind of owing to the conditions at their home field, have not been as good as past years in the red zone. But they are always calm with this stack of the captain, Sam Kaminsky and Jack Shanahan, willing to lose a few yards in order to get a good throw.
Robert and McCarthy really active on the mark here when they settle in. And Chicago marching off the wrong direction after being just a couple yards from a score. Lithio now taking out over on the far side of your screen. Shanahan pump faking around, offhands it.
Now find Cullen Baker in there.
And that is a very crucial point for Chicago. Possession was starting to get a little panic there towards the end, but Shanahan calming down, finding Baker for the score.
I mean, we've seen the ethos right now for the Union, right? They want to get that long throw off and make the defense have to trail them, because they know, especially that these teams are so well coached, so well organized. But Madison, after kind of doing roller pulls at the start of the quarter, they've switched to that high throw that settles right at the front of the end zone or just a couple yards deep, so the defense can come down and get set.
One thing to watch for as we're under 2 minutes of game clock here in the opening quarter, Radicals and these end of frame situations have not gone according to plan many times this season, and they've often allowed the visitors a little bit of a chance at redemption owing to some self-inflicted wounds of their own. So we'll be interesting to see if Madison kind of tries to do a 2-for-1 scenario here with this offensive possession, or if they will just kind of elect to bleed clock. I'm interrupted by another Beehart hammer, but there's a big block from Nick Pappas. Jack Nelson, the intended receiver, but just a little too much float under the discs. Chicago with a timeout, and they're looking to punch in just their first break score here of the game. I don't know if I'd call it announcer's curse what I just walked through, but this is the exact scenario that continues to befuddle this Madison team as they look so promising, so many other areas of this game, and yet these finer attention to detail moments still kind of escape a team that is so young.
Well, that honestly, I liked that throw, but Nick Pappas was in a nice spot to poach, read it very early on. And even though this is why Nick Pappas is such an important player. He gives up a lot of height on the defensive line, but he makes up for it not just with his athleticism, but his tenacity. And he was not going to be denied on that block.
The Chicago offense getting subbed onto the field as a result of that timeout. Again, Union looking for their first break score here of the night. Would pull things back within 1. To say it's necessary would be an understatement. As we get going, Kaminsky and Drummond, one of the best backfield tandems as far as complementary pairings, I would say, throughout the league this year. Real thunder and lightning kind of combo. Drummond stretching the field with his big throws. Kaminsky being such a rock around the disc. Weber hunting there with a lot of contact, no whistle. Drummond shrugs it off, pumps the deep throw, and absolutely perfect pace on that one. Chicago gets their first break score of the night and pulls within 1.
Yeah, that was really important, not just to pop his block, but to be able to convert on that possession. And you can see, even as good as those three guys are in the handler stack, Kaminsky, Shanahan, and Drummond, Jex Drummond still had to outfox Weber just to pull that throw down, and they needed to get that score so it would not be a 2-goal game, possibly going into the second quarter. You're never going to replace Pablo Giannis, right? But what Dex Drummond's put together this season has been so good in keeping the Union steady, even in games where they've gotten down multiple scores.
Being able to take the top off of defenses is becoming so crucial as there have been more and more game mechanics to allow better defensive pressure. And you just see it so much this season with Drummond and this offensive unit around him. I mean, obviously the additions of Wilson Matthews and last year with Andrew Sjogren give them big targets to hit. And John Lithiow, of course, coming on this season, and Jeff Weiss returning to the team. But Drummond as a thrower just kind of puts everything up a different level.
This is where you're going to have to see. This is going to be a great battle here at the end of the quarter. The Madison offense versus this Chicago defense that is very skilled, but at times has had to do a lot of work. They actually subbed in for an offensive point. So if they can hold this one, it would be a win for them.
And that's a bit of a swill pass, but to the tallest man on the field. Sample rips it down with two hands. We're ticking towards under 5 seconds to play. A little bit of give and go behind Luo, but he has no hesitation on that. Multiple Radicals players, including Gumby, but it goes off his hands. And a bit of an injury, it seems like there, but nope. Thankfully, looks like both players will pop up. Just a little bit of a collision there to end the quarter. Some chaos, as has always been the case here in the Central Division in 2024. And would you look at that? We've got a 1-goal game heading into quarter two. Madison up 6-5 here as we take a short break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with Friday Night Frisbee.
This Sunday night, the first round of the UFA playoffs conclude with Chicago and Madison colliding for a spot in the Central Division final. The Radicals ready to rock in front of their loyal fans, and the Union looking to spoil the party at Breeze Stevens Field. Opening poll set for 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 o'clock Central. Broadcast exclusively on WatchUFA.tv.
Welcome back, Frisbee fans. We are here in the intermission between the first and second quarters, between one of the two oldest sets of rivals within the Ultimate Frisbee Association.
It's going to take us some time, isn't it?
These two teams already met once this season back on May 31st. Chicago came away with a 1-goal home win over the Radicals. Chris, what do you remember about that game, having attended it in person?
I love watching Madison play. You always get to see Pat Schreiwise. You always get to see Kai Marcus isn't here tonight, but he's one of those guys who is just relentless and fearless when it comes to throwing that deep ball. And Victor Lual is a great player too. So that game just came down to the wire. At this point with Central Division games, with Midwest Division games, I expect it. So that one was no different. It was a great atmosphere out there too. Madison fans always travel. They were loud all night long. And I actually kind of felt for them because I was coming up here the next day to do PA for the Forward Madison game. And I wanted to tell him, I was like, that was tough, but I'll see you guys tomorrow. I'll see you back up here.
Going lakeside to lakeside, really, from that Evanston campus spot that Chicago calls home now. Real nice venue up there until it moved into construction season for football activities. But right there on the lake shore of Lake Michigan. We're set to go underway here to start the second quarter. Madison getting set on offense. Chicago settling in on defense. Quick chisel pass up to Sample. He's been crucial early in saving possessions with his huge size and stable hands. Luo's been an absolute attacker here through the first 12 minutes plus of the game.
They've got Jesse Johnson, it looks like, on Sample now. And such an important thing with Madison, you can't get broken on the throws in the middle of the field. Even though you're playing a zone defense, you have to stay at home, because once they get the break, they're going to be 2-3 throws down the field before you know it.
It's been a big point of emphasis for this Radicals team. They've often gotten congested in the middle parts of the field, but there you see them just smoothly moving between all parts. Avery Johnson shooting it up to Gutowski and the 2-goal Madison lead here to get things started in the second quarter.
Yeah, that was pretty textbook. There was a bit of a tip on one of the throws, but Madison was able to pull that in down around midfield. They got to Luau in the middle of the field, and then they were able to get the easy cut throw to the front corner. When you've got that cutter coming across from the middle of the end zone line, it's usually that they're going to have their mark beaten by 2 or 3 steps.
Avery Johnson, long-time Radicals player. Got his first season in the association way back in 2017. He's been a member of the Radicals every year since then. Lower than normal scoring numbers for the 7-year veteran. But he's really come on in the last couple of home games here as being just a stabilizing presence out there for the Radicals. Union underway of their first drive on offense of the second quarter. Shanahan ripping that flick, maybe the best in the entire division, easily has the pace on it for Baker downfield, and he jumps right into the end zone, making it look too easy there for the opening Chicago hold.
I think Cullen Baker might have been a bit surprised because he did try to milk that one down and jump into the end zone, but it looked from our vantage point that he got his foot right on the line, and then they called the score in. So about the easiest way you can do it for Chicago, Lithio having no trouble finding Baker running down the field, and with the way that the wind is blowing, you're going to have to run hard, but you don't have to run quite as hard because the disc is going to stay up for you going that direction.
I try to shy away from using the word automatic when it comes to throwers, but man, when Shanahan gets that open flick side huck, it's about as consistent as any throw in this league.
There's some guys you just absolutely love to watch. I got the chance to see Will Brandt a couple of weeks ago for the wind chill.
Oh, yeah.
And I love what Kai Marcus does, just that heartlessness. And like as soon as he sees the cutter open, he's going to launch it, right? But then you have Shanahan, you have Kaminsky, and you have Draymond on this Union team that have those throws as well.
Madison already in the attacking half of the field. Might get away from Luo, but he says absolutely not. Tracks it down easily on the far side of your screen. And back and forth we go here. One thing that's been very apparent for the Madison offense on their first several drives is their ability to use the entire width of the field, opening things up on either sideline as Shrywise, easy open side pass for Nelson with no one around.
Pat Shrywise, the veteran, you're just not seeing Madison make too many mistakes tonight. Even on the throws that get away, Luau was able to track that one down. And so Madison, I think if they stay within themselves, that's why I said early that 2-goal lead could stand, because as long as they hold serve, then they just take it to the end of the game. Chicago has to find another break if they want to get back in this one.
And Shrywise, similar to Weiss, 2 longtime veterans in the association, have really started to turn up their play as we approach the postseason. Shrywise always a rock with the disc, but he's really started to push the action a little bit more. You can see him just looking for a few more opportunities than where he was at the beginning of the calendar. Drummond, center of the field, you're going to hear that a lot tonight. He's been a turret in that part of the field. Chicago, when they have this full starting lineup available, really feel like one of the most balanced attacks. Kaminsky looking for Weiss over the back shoulder, but just a little too much edge on that one. And Radicals with their first break opportunity here of the second quarter. They're already 3 of 3 on defensive scoring chances here tonight.
I see this is what's so key for Madison tonight, having KPS back in the lineup. You already have Gutowski, who can play both sides of the disc. When you have a player like KPS who can play both sides as well as anybody we've seen in the history of this league, Madison can essentially use their defensive possessions like offensive possessions.
But a little bit of hesitation there as DiLorenzo was working towards a stall, but a quick perceptive timeout there from the Radical sideline will get the offense back on the field as they look to push back to their biggest lead of the night. They were up 6-3 at one point earlier in the game. Union battling back at the end of the first quarter. But Radicals still able to hold serve here and just a little bit of a cushion.
Stands have really started to fill up here at the stadium, and I keep seeing these discs go up, and I keep thinking they're going to go over that back wall.
Well, back in the day, there used to be the Roman Candle RIP Frisbee toss. Roman Candle no longer in existence in the city, but they used to give us their like overcooked pizzas. They were like almost cartoonishly large. And I remember one time someone threw an entire pizza over that retaining wall on the back edge of Breeze Stevens, landed out on Dayton Street over there. But that's a story for a different time here. So Radicals get set to take over. A big opportunity for a break score. Nickel really showing out here, ostensibly starting for the absent Kai Marcus on the Radicals offense, and he's been real solid with and around the disc here in the first half.
We haven't talked about Jack Nelson too much, but he's a guy who can get loose very quickly in the end zone. Looked like there was a bit of a tag and then reset from Nick Pappas to Jake Rubenmiller on Nelson, who's now hunting back at the end zone line.
Astrom hunting out there, but a little too aggressive. Didn't stick close enough to Gumby, and he's going to find his way into the end zone as he's done all season long. Nobody better within the UFA in 2024 than Anthony Gutowski at scoring goals.
He's just incredible to watch. That Callahan he had last week was a thing of absolute beauty. And by that, I mean I'm a player, or a former player at this point, a very, very former player who liked to have some contact when I was going for throws, whether it was laying out or going up in the air. And he's not one to ever shy away from contact. So he put his body on the line for that Callahan. In the same way, he's elusive, just like he was breaking his mark and getting into the end zone for a clear shot.
And he's got one of those words that I feel like has so many different meanings for so many different people, motor. He's gotten an unmistakable motor. And one of the things that I love hearing about that is that motor is a skill. It is something you develop over time, and that is so apparent from his first season to his second with Gutowski. He just continues to push how he makes plays and how he puts himself into position.
You know, that's interesting because I think I've always been one to think that like that relentlessness when you talk about motor is something that's just innate to some people, no matter whether it's how they started playing, maybe the coaching that they had, or just who they are. It's something that's very hard for coaches to get across. But he definitely has it in spades.
Chicago taking a few more passes than they have on several possessions here to move into the attacking half of the field, but now Shanahan, the rest of that Union offense finding some rhythm. Almost announcer's curse there, but Sjogren digs one out, saves possession, but I spoke too soon. Madison looking in transition. Carrico pump faking, trying to find McCarthy streaking deep, but Radicals will settle in here. Again, looking for another break. Kanaki all alone once again. He's absolutely fired up. Kanaki, one of the biggest veteran presences here in 2024 for the Radicals. Feels like every game he's making a statement play as the Radicals push to their largest lead here of the night, 10-6.
Well, we saw this in the first quarter, right, Adam? The Radicals were able to get out to that 3-goal lead, and the Chicago offensive line looked a little bit out of sorts as they did on that last one. Kaminsky went the wrong way, Sjogren able to save him, but then Sjogren trying to go back to Shanahan and got it off his fingertips. And Madison, as soon as they see the turnovers come, they're already putting bodies forward, and that's how they were able to get that easy score. Another break opportunity and another conversion.
Radicals defense loves to tilt the field and make it like they're running downhill at you off of those turnovers. They love to get numbers in transition, and they really like to make you feel the pressure of, hey, we're trying to score in 10 or less passes. You better be getting back on defense and doing something about it.
Going to see a slightly different look here as Weiss is going to join the defensive line for this possession. So you got Jesse Johnson out there with Astrom, Rubenmiller, Baker, Priest, and Steslicki.
For the Radicals, heavy veteran presence mixed in with Gutowski and Liebforth. We've got a lot of day one Radical stars out there. Josh Wilson, Andrew Mechanic, KPS. Jack Kelly's been on this team several years, making his first start in a few games, coming back from an injury. trying to make his way onto that active 20 should the Radicals finally end this postseason stretch, but a miscommunication there. Baker looking for a Chicago receiver that wasn't, and Mechanix, who else, stepping into the lane, and once again, Radicals defense off and running. Kelly taking a big gainer just past midfield. You can just see there's no slowing down. Barely 2 seconds go by and that disc is out of the hand and moving elsewhere on the field. No chance for Chicago to settle in a mark here. So Radicals are within the red zone again. Gutowski, front cone. That's the textbook play for the Radicals as they take a 5-goal lead here with 5:47 to play in the opening half.
You could almost see that one coming. Cullen Baker was right on the doorstep, and he wanted to get the disc out of his hands, and that's such a difficult time to have when you're the one who has to make the throw. That's why you typically see Chicago willing to retreat a couple of yards to get a better throw. But Baker was trying to go in, look for a cutter, and threw it exactly the wrong way. And that score was set up because once the disc got out of the end zone, the Union had to send 2 players with Gutowski for at least 20 steps. And so the Radicals were able to get a couple of easy continuation plays before settling into their offense.
And aside from that Nick Pappas block on the intended throw into the end zone from Brian Hart, Radicals are mistake-free here through the first 18 minutes of this contest. 6 of 6 on D-line opportunities, 9 of 9 in the red zone, and another mistake for the Chicago offense. It's been real feast or famine here tonight for that unit. And a foul on the mark and some visible frustration from Chicago as this game is starting to get a bit out of control for the visitors.
Yeah, you have to keep your cool in situations like this. Even if you're down 5 goals against such a solid team, you know what's at stake. The playoffs are on the line, and a potential home date at the playoffs is on the line. Is now we're going to get a traveling call against Luke Marks. But the Union are definitely out of pocket right now. They have to get a tonic.
Madison still with 1 timeout remaining in this half. Be interesting to see if they elect to use it here, pocket it for a potential later situation here in the second quarter. Carrico and Luo in the backfield. Sterling Kanaki providing a release valve there. Just great hustle across the board here tonight from Madison. All the pieces moving into position when they need them. Really no tricky situations. I almost announcer cursed it again there. But here Weber, Luo, and Kanaki working between each other, and a little too ambitious there. Looked in rhythm, but just a little too much mustard on that throw. Chicago needing this opportunity at redemption. Got to cut into this Madison lead somehow. As we move under 4 minutes to play here in the second quarter. Shanahan with it on the far side of your screen. It's just been so Jekyll and Hyde with these Chicago offensive possessions. Sometimes they score within 5 throws, and then there are these where it just feels like they can't get out of the mid-range.
Yeah, you can tell that they're just trying to find some rhythm, as it looks like that's going to be a strip.
Yeah, that was definitely still within Baker's hand when McCarthy ran by and be able to march off 10 yards. But back to what you were saying.
Well, I think the impulse here is you're down 5 goals. Madison has such a good record at home, and they've been successful in so many different ways. And so I was wondering if the impulse there at that turnover was going to be, once Lithia or Shanahan got the disc, to try and find Matthews or somebody else streaking down the field. But I honestly think the Union have to be calm and try to work this one up. Even if you lose some time on the clock, you're able to right the ship in terms of your team morale as well as your offense.
It's just striking to me how many possessions here. Madison is pushing the disc back, and McCarthy gets a hand on it at midfield. And the Radicals defense is feasting here in the first half. Just over 2:30 to go. Weber with the disc, looking for opportunity and to really put a hurting here on the Union in the first 2 quarters. No signs of a timeout being called. Robert on the doorstep. No adversity there, throwing in for Marks. and a 6-goal lead for the home team. We had 1 goal after the first. Radicals were up just 6-5 after the first 12 minutes. It's been 6-1 all Radicals since.
Yeah, in this quarter, you felt that there might have been a momentum shift after that Pappas block. But the Radicals have taken it to Chicago in this second quarter. And disarray is the word for this quarter for that Union offense. And a lot of times on the turnovers, you're asking their offensive line to do something that they're not in the best position to do, which is defend a team that handles well at least 4 or 5 positions on their D-line.
Chicago's O-line defense has been pretty visibly lacking here in the opening half. Just way too many move down the field possessions for the Radicals defense. Again, they're 7 of 8 in this game on break opportunities. Came into this game trailing only Seattle for the highest break rate in the entire UFA. They're showing why here tonight. They really run down opponents' throats whenever they get the opportunity. And once again, a little bit of a mix and match offensive possession here and some backfield stickiness that's been plaguing the Union all game long. KPS just hunting handlers and looking like he hasn't missed a single game, and a drop there from Ruben Miller as the crowd really starting to get ecstatic, feeling a blowout coming for the home team. Not something that has happened very often as they've gotten set to play. The big collision there. KPS shaken up a bit. Weiss and KPS, 2 of the hardest fighting players in the entire league. Very respectful opponents of each other. KPS working on that shoulder, gonna take a timeout. Just looking a little banged up.
If he comes off, I don't think he'll be coming off for that long. I was wondering if they were going to call that a contact foul, just depending on where the disc was when both players got tangled up. And it looks like Madison's going to retain possession.
Yeah, it felt like KPS had the inside line on that, and in order for Weiss to make a play, he was just going to have to initiate way too much contact. And as you saw there, getting tangled up in the legs. And here is Madison's second and final timeout. Feels very apropos after a little bit of a bated breath situation there with KPS. But again, Radicals with their opportunity at their 8th break score here of the opening half. Want to mention in the first meeting between these two teams, actually for 1 second, we're going to take a live look in at the Super Series game. It's the division leading Minnesota Wind Chill are hosting the 2-time reigning champion New York Empire. TCO Stadium, New York, with an early 2-goal lead. But looks to be a bit of a fast-paced shootout there in Minnesota. Already 8-6 with still over 8 minutes left in the first half. Felt that way earlier here tonight, but it's kind of slowed down here in the second quarter as the Union's offense has really struggled to get on track in the second frame.
And I think what we were used to, at least what I was used to for those first couple of years I was on the PA with the Union, when you have guys like Ross Barker, Pablo Yanis, and Sam Kaminsky who was in that handler group, the Union were so good at continuation cuts and just being able to move up the field and break marks. Now when they've thrived this season, it's been off long hucks and being able to space the field out and have the defense chase them.
Almost a no-look scoober out of the double team there for Strywise, and a big old travel as Turcello hop steps into that pass. Have to march the wrong way. Madison will get an opportunity to settle in a double team.
And now this is what the fans were sensing previously on the possession before the foul and then before this turnover. Soon as Chicago worked that disc back to the middle of the field, you could sense that the crowd was hungry for a Callahan. And there was a moment where Nate Astrom got a swing and Anthony Gutowski was bearing down on him. He looked like he wanted one in back-to-back weeks.
We've got a timeout off here between Coach Woods on Chicago, Coach DeBile on Madison. Gonna take a quick look at the Central Division standings. As we've mentioned a few times, Minnesota has already wrapped up the #1 seed. They will host the Central Division Championship in just a couple of weeks. But Central Division is the only division within the entire association that still has the 2nd and 3rd seeds up for grabs. Little bit of displacement there. Union should technically be above the Radicals owing to their head-to-head win against Madison on May 31st, but they are virtually in a tie for second place. Then you still have Thunderbirds and Indianapolis squaring off this Sunday in the Game of the Week matchup on Watch UFA TV. Indy 4-5 coming off of a loss at Colorado. Pittsburgh having stumbled to 3 straight losses. They had the inside track for even the second seed at a certain point just a couple weekends ago, but they lose to Detroit. They lost close here last weekend with a valiant effort, kind of playing with the skeleton roster. Just not much going right now at this point in the season for the T-Birds.
Yeah, I won't say that loss to Detroit shook them up, but they looked so good early in the season, and they have such talent on their team. Did Wilson Matthews
get top gear there from Matthews, but Leapforth getting in the way.
I thought Wilson Matthews had no chance on that one, and he made it a lot closer than it seemed.
He really has an ability to kind of give life to any disc with that downfield track speed he shows.
I wonder about that, because if I was Dave Woods in the timeout, I would have said our only objective is to score on this possession. But now Madison, with enough time to work the disc down the field if they want it, and they've got runners.
5 seconds under it. Gutowski, not normally the thrower, but finding range on this one. Multiple targets underneath, and a big grab over the pack from Luke Marks as the sideline erupts.
Luke Marks was running by himself down the left sideline, and I was looking to see if anybody was going to come over and pick him up. And once the throw came down there, he'd had so much time to orient himself and not have anybody running with him that he was in great position to get up, reach the clouds, and pull that one out of the air. And just like that, in a league where differential's so important, Madison up 7 going into halftime.
A 7-1 second quarter blowout for the home team, punctuated by this big Luke Marks sky at the buzzer, up and over the pack. Madison with a game-high 7-goal lead going into half. You're going to want to tune in for the second half of Friday Night Ultimate Frisbee.
This Sunday night, the first round of the UFA playoffs conclude with Chicago and Madison colliding for a spot in the Central Division Final. The Radicals ready to rock in front of their loyal fans, and the Union looking to spoil the party at Breeze Stevens Field. Opening poll set for 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 o'clock Central. Broadcast exclusively on WatchUFA.tv.
Welcome back, Frisbee fans. We are just a couple moments away here from the start of the second half between the 6-4 visiting Chicago Union and the 13-6 leading home team, Madison Radicals. Radicals defense jumping all over the Union offense in that second frame. Madison finished the second quarter with a 7-1 run. Nearly perfect on their D-line opportunities and red zone chances. Just 3 total turnovers in the first 2 quarters. Meanwhile, Chicago really struggling to find a rhythm after they were within just 1 goal at the end of the first quarter. Again, really getting staggered in that second.
Well, the Union have also been successful when they've been able to turn opponents over, and they've converted their one chance. But other than that, they haven't really given themselves an opportunity to turn Madison over.
Chicago with just 1 break score for themselves in the entire first half. Tough sledding for Chicago. Their defense was so crucial for their win back on May 31st at home. They got 10 break scores in that matchup, winning 20-19. But the Chicago offense, maybe in a bit of foreshadowing, struggles against whatever kind of coverage this Radicals has been throwing at them.
And Dave Woods talked to me about that in pregame. He said that they knew that we were going to see a couple of different styles of defense, expected some double teams, expected some different type of zone. And Madison had a lot of success with it, as you can see in the second quarter. But some of that, I think, was just the Union offense getting frazzled and maybe anticipating a little bit early what they were going to see instead of taking what the defense gave them. We'll see if they can figure things out in the second half.
The heat has really kind of dropped off here. Sun starting to set. Perfect summer night here in the capital city of Ultimate. Starting offensive possession of the second half for the visitors. Setting up with a lot of passes within the own half of their possession, but getting a lot of touches between its parts. Shanahan taking over in the center of the field. You know, he's looking to unleash that flick. Baker filling in for the absent Milan Rivas. Rivas being such an important contributor on the backfield rotations of the Chicago offense. Real cleaner fish who operates so well alongside Kaminsky and Dremin. And Baker here slotting a bit into that role. But you got to wonder, with some of the struggles that the Union offense have faced, if their timing is just a little bit off without having Rivas there, steady as he's been all season.
Yeah, you can see that Baker's had a tough game, and I think at this point Madison is trying to key on him and not enable him to get out loose in the back of the stack for the throws closer to scores, and rather having him operate as a handler here, and that's where their defense has been able to find some success.
And you do see some adjustments here in the opening possession for Chicago as they get a hard-fought hold. Lithiow up to Wilson Matthews. He increases his team lead in goals. As the Union pull back within 6 the first 90 seconds here, the third quarter.
An important score. I honestly think that they had to get that score before the first half ended. So 12-7 looks a lot better now than 13-7 and 13-6 going into the break. But a nice score, very calmly paced. Jeff Weiss with a quick scuba over the top to Lithiow, and then Lithiow found Matthews at the back of the end zone. And the important thing, too, they didn't take too much time off the clock, only a minute 30. Different than the frenetic pace we saw to open the game, but what they needed in order to kind of calm the waters a bit.
And as I mentioned in the first half, one of the big meta strategies for this Madison team is to get the opposing team's offense out there as much as possible, because they know through simple math that their defense is going to earn them a lot of breaks. Here through the first half plus of action, Chicago has 16 offensive possessions. Just a lot of cash-in opportunities for this Radicals D-line.
And you talked about Milan Rivas missing, but they're also missing Cal Turnabene on that defensive line. So you actually lose an important part of the offensive line because you have to have Andrew Sjogren playing on the D-line. And that takes away one of your release valves and ultra-important cutters, especially in the finishing third of the field.
Meanwhile, Madison's offense down its #1 deep thrower, Kai Marcus, one of the most potent and powerful handlers within the entire association. And yet, even without his field stretching abilities, real solid showing here. If they punch this in, they will be 6 of 8 on their offensive possessions. But I'm telling you, I'm really skilled at these announcers' curses as Steslicki just steps in front of that one, slaps it down. Chicago with an early opportunity at a break. Again, just had 1 total in the first half. But as we've seen many times here at Breese-Stevens Field, and especially between these two franchises, it's all about momentum. They know each other so well, so as soon as they can kind of figure that out, it's off to the races. Big challenge up in the air there from Nickel. Priest tries to bring it in, but can't. The Radicals with an opportunity here at a dirty hold to push their lead back to 7. Schreiwise, no one around. Toluo pump faking off Gutowski, flashing towards that sideline. Toluo not liking the margins there against Sjogren, another speedster. The 2012 Detroit All-Star representative, Sjogren. Him and Matthews have been so great as fill cutters on offense, but more and more here in the waning games, you see the Union using Sjogren's hustle and stamina on some defensive rotations here, just giving a little bit of legs to Gutowski. As Madison's really settling into this second possession here of this O-point. Schreiwise up and over the top of everybody, looking for Hart on the far sideline. And a foul there. I didn't see where it took place.
It looked like Jake Steslicki was trying to come across, and I couldn't see if the route he was taking, or Sam Gabrielson, I'm sorry, was trying to come across and contacted Noah Nickel And so he wasn't close to where the throw was going to end up, but I think they got that pick called on the play. And it looks like the Union actually get possession out of that one.
And you have an irate DeBile on the sideline pleading with the refs about a change of possession on that call, but Chicago will take over for a second opportunity here at a break. We've got a whistle, a lot of those coming in short succession. Believe that's a timeout from Chicago. You see some applauding there and a lot of boos coming from the Radicals faithful. So we're gonna try and take a look at what the heck just happened. Again, Shriwise looking to arc this throw all the way over the top. And I believe that they're saying that Sample set a pick there?
It looked like Steslicki was trying to get there, and honestly, with the score the way it is, I wouldn't have been surprised if he altered his route, but it looks like once he turned and tried to get his first step set, he ran into Sample and got knocked off balance. Again, Jake Steslicki was pretty far out of that play, but the rules of the game being what they are, I had to learn that early on. You can't impede the player's progress, even if they're trying to, get to a distance they won't be able to rake it to.
Almost 5 minutes off the game clock here in the third quarter, and we're just in the second point. Union really battling here to get this break. Took a timeout, subbed on their offense. A little bit more pace here. Radicals still with a significant lead, but after an interchange like that, it is the absolute opportunity that can propel visitors here. As you get some more booing from the Madison stands. Wilson Matthews getting the first break score here for Chicago in the third quarter. We're already at 6:42 to go.
Well, after the pace that we got in the first 5 minutes, you figure it's going to be a 25-24 game. But Madison kind of kept that pace up as we see Tim DeBile talking with the officials on that play. And you got he made that motion of, kind of what we would call in the NBA a Chris Paul type play. Let's put it that way from Steslicki on that.
He was a little stuck on Sample in a way where it was a little confusing watch on the replay how he wasn't getting around him. I understand that Sample is a very large man, but there is such things known as sidestepping. I was going to compare it to Draymond, but I appreciate the CP3 comparison.
That is fair, too. I think both of those are very, very apt. Either way, the Union with 2 scores that they needed here in the third quarter, and they have not given up a goal yet. So that's the start that they needed to the second half.
It was 6-5 Madison in the first quarter, and it was 7-1 all Radicals in the second. But the first 2 scores here, the third, belong to the visitors. And Astrom to the ceiling. Mr. Astronaut, you do not want to test him and his height. Rookie sensation here for Chicago has been coming up big all season long for the Union.
Now I think they're going to try and find Pappas or Priest on this long huck to the end zone. This is going to be a jump ball.
Up and contested. A lot of bodies, some hitting the ground, but no real frustration there as Madison takes back over possession.
I think we're going to see a couple of end-to-end type of points here now because Chicago is desperate for scores, and they know that their defensive line has had a lot of time on the field, so they're going to try and hit ahead as quickly as possible. Madison can afford the luxury of slowing things down, but if they break a mark, you're going to see them put one long.
Shriwise tracking that one down into space, keeping his momentum to a streaking Gumby. He accelerates for the score, and an important Madison hold as they push back to a 6-goal lead. Madison already with as many turnovers here in the first 6+ minutes of the third quarter as they had in the entire first half. You can see Chicago's defensive pressure just getting a little bit more of leverage against these Madison offensive possessions. Here we get another look at that contested disc in deep space. Hart going up, getting a finger on it. Team defense prevailing. And then Shriwise reading it overhead to a streaking Gutowski. He ties Matthews for a game-high 4 goals here tonight. Gutowski without a turnover, 210 total yards. Just has been absolutely on fire the past several weeks. up to 48 total goals this season.
Now, the Radicals forcing Chicago back into a long succession in their own end zone. They're going to put it out to Kaminsky, and for the moment, they break the pressure.
Very little continuation options, though. Radicals clearly affecting the timing downfield. So that disc just makes it over the outstretched hands of Mechanix. Shanahan now with it. Up to Dremin. Pump faking, reversing fields to Matthews. And Wilson wasn't quite on the same page there with the Dremin look. I like the idea theoretically, but with the receiver not quite being there in sync, it's another opportunity for Madison at a break. But they have yet to get one here in the third quarter after piling them up in the first half. Kelly having the double team settle in on him. Back to Wilson, over to McCarthy. Wonder if McCarthy's going to get a chance to step into one of his lefty backhands. It's felt like he's connected on a couple of those every game, and it almost errant pass. Dremin looked like he had a beat on it, but instead Wilson digging it out of the turf. Gutowski once again showing off the range to a wide open Mechanix. Weiss just lost track of him in the back, and up to DiLorenzo. His first goal of the season in his 2024 debut. I got cut off earlier in the game, but DiLorenzo out there playing a number 15, usually number 1. Team didn't even order him a jersey this year because they were not expecting him back on the field owing to coming back from hip surgery, but he came to practice a couple weekends ago, said that he was feeling great. Looked great running around out there, and there you can see doing what he did his first couple years here in Madison, just hustling back up on the back end of a play and making something good happen.
The thing when you get down by a lot of goals, Adam, is that you have to play desperately. And right there, Dex Draymond had a shot at that low disc, but a great play by Madison digging that one out. And once his mark was down, you have at least one, maybe two open throws. And credit to Andrew Mechanix. He was chugging down there for everything that he had, and they dropped it right in the bucket to him, and another easy score. And now Madison up once again by 7.
Chicago in danger of getting doubled up here in the third quarter. Completely not what we expected heading into this matchup here tonight.
Well, we were thinking about a close game with two teams that know each other so well.
Well, and it looked like that again after the first quarter. Chicago trailing just 6-5. But Union scoring just 3 goals in the quarter plus since. Another turnover in transition. Quick strike ability from Mac Weber to Pierre Robert, the rookie sensation who has been punching in handfuls of breaks for this Madison team all season long.
I mean, Jake Steslicki got caught out in the middle there, and kind of similar to what we saw with Jake Rubin Miller near the end of the game against Minnesota. Looked like he had a quick throw, and then the defense came over and poached right on cue. And then Robert had the easy break, because once the mark on the handler is always the first one you look for, because they have the easiest job on those short field breaks, where they're just going to get into the end zone and it's a one-on-one matchup.
Home team doubling up the visitors here with just under 3 to play in the third quarter. 16-8, the Radicals lead the Union. Again, as I was mentioning just a moment ago, Union getting 5 goals in the first. Just 3 total scores since. So the Madison defense has absolutely turned the lights out on this Union team coming off of their best performance of the season. They put up 25 goals against the Wind Chill in Minnesota. Perennially one of the best defensive units there with the Wind Chill, and yet Chicago just making mincemeat of them, getting virtually anything that they wanted. And it's been the opposite case here tonight. Union showed some rhythm early, but there's just been nothing to really speak of over the last quarter and a half, now going on 2. Big bid there from Mechanix. He's quietly been having a really solid performance here tonight, getting close on a lot of discs He's just got a gravity to him out there on defense, playing in his 12th season in the association. Again, a day one starter for this Radicals team.
Now we see Sjogren back on the offensive line. Something that the unit absolutely had to do to get a player out there with some stability and just that can cut and handle at the same time.
A lot of work there, but a big forearm check from Liebforth, rakes Weiss across the arm, and he'll take over on the goal line, centered in the middle of the field. Fans getting a little feisty after some of those calls earlier. They're just disagreeing with any whistle, it feels like now.
Oh, they're up 8. They know what this game means. They want everything. I would too.
Chicago looking to punch it in here, but we'll tick under a minute to go in the quarter. Really slowed things down here in the second to last frame of the game as Lithia finds Matthews, and a little bit of frustrated catharsis there. He hesitated the first spike, but then he wanted that second one. Matthews always playing fired up. Feels like him and Gutowski have a very shared spirit as far as how to approach the game. Both that game-breaking speed that they both bring to the field and that just, that edge. Like, you can see there Matthews wondering the first attempt, should I spike this? And then going, no, I'm going to. I'm still leading this game in goals.
You've watched these games and been a part of this broadcast thing for so long, Adam, and I think you've been able to parse out that there's different types of players that you have on the field. There's the guys who want to be handling the disc. They've had so much experience and they have all the throws. They're the guys who are just elite cutters, know how to utilize their body. And then there's those guys who will lay out for just about everything. The thing with Matthews and Gutowski, they can do all three of those things at any one time, and that's what makes them such special players.
That's a great point. We'll see here. Ooh, that disc getting a little too much underneath of it. Ashram got a terrific bead, but now all of a sudden he's out of play, and Madison looking to take advantage of it in transition. Nice recover in coverage there from Chicago, but still looking to get back into place. Little bit of a zone look here from the visitors as Madison weaving with under 30 seconds. We'll probably try for a final shot now in the waning moments. 16 seconds, Hart and Nickel going back and forth, but just a bit of a misread there from Nickel. Chicago with a little bit of an opportunity here to gain some momentum into the final quarter. Johnson and Priest going two-man, but instead it's 3 Radicals defenders underneath of that short Hail Mary attempt, and the Radicals slam the door on any kind of breathing room for Chicago. Just 9 goals after the first 3 quarters here from the visitors.
Yeah, you wanted any kind of a momentum shift, any kind of thing to hang your hat on, and being able to win that quarter would have helped. But even though Chicago got the turnover, they were not quite able to get the score that they needed. So Madison still leading by 7 going into the final frame.
This Sunday night, the first round of the UFA playoffs conclude with Chicago and Madison colliding for a spot in the Central Division Final. The Radicals ready to rock in front of their loyal fans, and the Union looking to spoil the party at Breeze Stevens Field. Opening poll set for 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 o'clock Central. Broadcast exclusively on WatchUFA.tv.
Welcome back, Frisbee fans. We're here for the final quarter of action between Chicago and Madison. The home team taking a 7-goal lead into the fourth quarter, thanks to the league leader in goals scored, Anthony Gutowski. He's currently being challenged right now by Alec Wilson-Holiday out of Dallas for the league lead, but Gutowski's been nothing short of a finisher once again here tonight. There you see him pleading with the defense. Can you even stop me from getting to this front cone? There you see Wilson-Holiday for Dallas sporting some Frisbees. Him and Gutowski are going to be battling throughout these final few games of the 2024 UFA regular season calendar. This is the penultimate weekend of the regular season. There is one more to go. Speaking of that, this is the penultimate regular season game for both these teams here tonight. They both enter 6-4. But Chicago staring down the barrel of a tough road loss here. Madison looking to improve to 7-4. Chicago has one remaining game against Detroit. Meanwhile, Madison will get set to host Indianapolis here next Friday night. And as we kind of mentioned at the beginning of the show and a little bit throughout, the playoff math in the Central is weird. Because right now, Indy sits at 4-5. They have 2 games this weekend, Saturday tomorrow against Detroit on the road, and then they've got to go and face the Thunderbirds, sitting at 4-6, coming off of 3 straight losses in Pittsburgh on Sunday. Indy dropped that game earlier in the season by 8 goals at Pittsburgh, and so that is by no means any kind of edge there for the visiting Indy AlleyCats. But if they win at Detroit and lose at Pittsburgh, they'll still be in a position to clinch a playoff spot potentially next weekend here with a win.
Yeah, I mean, I thought you were going to do the Charlie Day mathematics, like numbers, lines all over the wall and newspapers up.
Pepe Sylvia.
That's what the central picture looks like as Madison opens up the 4th period with a score to Jack Nelson. But the thing that's so important with this is, too, we're talking about those teams who are in the hunt still. This game was for the kind of the virtual lock on second place. And while Chicago had the head-to-head right before this game, they only beat Madison by 1. So not only was this important for Madison to win, but they're winning big. And so even if the Union win their game at home against Detroit next week and Madison lose, ostensibly they will still have that head-to-head goal differential tiebreaker.
Yeah, not only was a win important here for either team, that goal differential has become all important here at the end of the UFA regular season calendar, not only for the races within the Central Division, but also for the potential overall #1 seed at championship weekend. That is what Minnesota is also competing for here tonight as they are facing off in the Super Series matchup against New York over on UFA YouTube. Chicago getting set for their opening possession here, already within the red zone. As Matthews gets it up to Kaminsky, trapped on that far sideline, looking to get it back across the width of the field, and Weiss wide open, pleading with anybody to find him. Kaminsky does over the top with a hammer. The Union respond quickly. That was one of just 9 red zone opportunities here tonight for Chicago. They are 6 of 9, just 66% conversion rate on red zone opportunities, and Madison has just done such a good job of keeping them out of attacking position all night long.
If you take away that second quarter, it's an 11-10 game, but you can't take away that second quarter. And that was so important for Madison because once they got that lead, once they got the lead out to 4, it was incumbent upon Chicago to really try and settle things down, get some scores, and at least if you're having trouble stopping the offense, the one surefire way to keep them from scoring is to keep them off the field. But the Union went for quick scores, and those led to turnovers, and we've talked about that D-line conversion rate. The Radicals so good at converting on the break.
Kaminsky picking up his first assist here of the night. And an advantageous attempt over the top. Sample sprawls out for it, but can't come up with the disc. And in return, Pappas kind of cuts off what I believe to be the intended receiver there in Steslicki with a layout. But no purchase there, and Madison takes back over quickly.
I tell you, when Victor Luau gives up a throw, you absolutely have to make something out of it because the chances are very low that he's going to make another bad throw.
How about Hart and Luo leading this Madison attack here tonight? I'll try to speak even as Luo completes another pass, but they are 78 of 80 on their pass attempts here. Really providing a stable backbone for this Madison attack all night long, and there Luo finding the upline goal from Sample and the easy conversion once again within the red zone for the Radicals. They have been absolute money in short-range situations. I love to talk about offenses in this way. Their ground game has been fantastic tonight. Just those kind of easy handoffs, less than 5-yard passes, take it as it comes, but continuing to keep motion going and moving sideline to sideline. That's been the Madison magic all night long.
And as we see that replay, there was pretty good defense by Sam Gabrielson preventing Anthony Gutowski from getting free. So Victor Luau just had to give and go. He made the short throw. I think he made one move to his left and then just busted back to his right. Jake Ruben Miller could not catch up, and he was wide open for the score.
And it's just really interesting seeing it because you knew they were going to have to coming into this game without Marcus, but the Radicals have absolutely abstained from a deep game in this attack plan here tonight. They are 6 of 6 on deep attempts, but they're really not trying to force anything downfield, relying again on that ground game, those short range opportunities, and it's just paying off in spades with this 8-goal lead here in the final 9 minutes of the contest.
Yeah, when they've had those hucks, it's been because they've gotten a break and the defenses, or the Chicago defense to offense, is out of position, and so they already have runners available. So you're not hucking into a crowd of bodies in those instances. You're going for one-on-one or two-on-one matchups.
Absolutely stellar point there as Drummond takes over just over 30 yards outside of the end zone. Just not really enough pop here from Chicago to try to mount this comeback.
Saw Charlie First on the sideline hopping up and down. He saw an open cutter and looks like Kaminsky, Shanahan could not find them. And it's been that kind of night. Once that second quarter, really, it just turned into quicksand for the Union.
Well, and we were so impressed with their ability to get out into fast break and engage that deep game that keeps everything so balanced and well-oiled for this Union attack. And yet, since the opening 12 minutes, there is nothing available downfield for Chicago.
Well, I think just if you keep the game within 2 or 3, then if you get the deep shot, you get a quick possession, and you can get your defense back on the field, and you only have to make up a couple of scores. Now you can't necessarily afford to go deep because if you miss, you're tired. You're just tired after that. And there's nothing on the scoreboard that you can look to for an extra bounce of energy at this point. So you're not only playing behind, you're playing the clock, you're playing against the home crowd, which has been great tonight up in Madison, but you're playing against your body's willingness to keep competing, and that's so tough at this juncture.
How about the fact that we have almost an equal amount in the goal margin to minutes left on the clock here, and no one is leaving the stands?
No, that's fantastic. I mean, once we got the Frisbee into the ultimate Frisbee Association, I did it too. The fan support has grown so much over these last couple of seasons, and it's such a great time too. There's no stranglehold on the title. The title picture is wide open this year.
I've been dubbing it the chaos season all year long. It just feels like anytime you get a read on a team, they'll go and have a performance kind of like what Chicago's having here tonight. You know, these back-to-back scenarios where so many contenders show one strong set of features in one matchup and then go and face a different team and look completely different the next week. That has been a characteristic throughout every division throughout the 2024 season.
Good time here at the very least for Chicago to get a couple of their players making their debuts this year in Hunter Latson and Trevor Wright getting time on the field, as well as Joe White in the green cleats. Have not been able to see Joe White much this year at all.
Do believe that is not actually Joe White.
Is that not Joe White, 91?
That is not Joe White.
Oh.
No, he's tall like Joe White. It's Wright.
That's right.
You had the W right at the beginning of the and are right on that, but no, he has a similar build as Joe White, but you know, Chicago could use a Joe White here tonight. We're going to take another quick live look in at another Central Division game. Minnesota down 5 at the beginning parts of the third quarter. The Super Series matchup again on UFA YouTube. Feel free to open up another browser tab to spectate that one. Minnesota not out of it yet, playing in front of a big crowd there at TCO Stadium. Same site as where New York won their title last year. Nice upline look there. Finding, I believe that is Greg Cousins from the sensational rookie Leo Sovel Fernandez. No, that was Gordon Larson with the goal for Minnesota. Sovel Fernandez, though, has been absolutely fantastic for that Minnesota team in his first season.
Oh, he's a wonderful player. Gotten the chance to see him up close twice this year. And I think Minnesota, I love to say that they have an advantage Because it looks like that's going to be a foul against Jesse Johnson, bidding for a takeaway on Jack Nelson. But I think they have an advantage when you're playing in an environment. You have to play in Minnesota in May. You're not going to get the most comfortable conditions, especially in that field, whether they're by the river or not. So they have an advantage when they're playing at home and on the road.
Big bobble, but retaining of the possession there from Avery Johnson. Madison probing into the red zone here, or at least trying to. Starting to back up here in the last couple of throws. But they've got the clock absolutely on their side. No pressure for the home team here as we close in on the final 6 minutes of the game.
Nice look. Gutowski going to really drop back into that stack here, though he's got Sjogren. Astrom with some contact on Johnson, and that will enable the Radicals to move up even further towards the end zone.
One of the things that's so impressive to me about Gutowski is how impactful he makes each of his catches. He rarely positions himself to get the disc outside of the end zone and kind of is always just finishing. You almost see him with the same number of completions as goals scored in half of his games right now. That isn't to say anything or take away from his developing game as Luo punches it into Hart. Radicals increase their lead back to 8, 19-11, but getting back to Gutowski, he's just so dang effective at only showing you his strengths. You just don't really get a chance to make him into a thrower because he's not really looking to force himself into those spaces. And I think that that is such a wonderful quality for a player like him to have, where he doesn't have to over-activate. He doesn't have to do too much.
Yeah, we said earlier that he can make those throws if need be. We saw him operate further up the field in the stack on that last possession. But he's not going to make himself primarily be a handler on any one possession. And once it gets into the attacking half of the field, teams have to cover him. And I think that makes Madison so dangerous, because he can drop back and handle if needed, but you still have to shadow him with one, if not two bodies at all times.
He's averaging nearly 20 yards per touch here tonight. Just the definition of explosive game changer from the Radicals' second-year standout receiver in Gutowski. Union, what do you want to see from them here in the waning moments? What can they salvage, as it looks like that Weiss attempt is going to flow too far out, but Drummond with an absolutely incredible save. Da-na-na, na-na-na.
You got to put that one on SportsCenter tonight.
What was that? An unbelievable greatest save from Drummond. Keeps possession alive for the Union.
Well, you asked me what I wanted to see, and I didn't necessarily want to see that, but I wanted to see some fight still. And Weiss then just puts it into open space, looking for Lithio. Nobody was there. See if we'll have a foul or a strip on that call, maybe?
Looks like actually an injury timeout taken from Madison's Luke Marks, coming up a little bit limp. Let's look again at that absolutely mind-boggling layout greatest attempt from Drummond. Look at this one, folks. Ooh, I don't know if he actually had his legs
his knee
still
was
up.
down.
Yeah, I got so excited for just the momentum of that play, but it does look like on replay he might have not had himself totally in bounds. Again, you are still an active receiver as long as you don't make a ground contact point, but it looked like his leg did initiate before he got the disc off. We'll look one more time. That fantastic effort from Drummond on the sideline. Haven't even mentioned the unfortunate turnover that resulted just a play later, but let's look at it one more time here, see if we can really slow it down. In live action, it looked good, but yeah, right there you see his entire foreleg in contact with the ground. Definitely should have been out of bounds on that play.
I mean, at this point, when you're down 8 goals, you know, I think there is something to say about the effort on that one. And
wow.
Honestly, I mean, Draymond trying to keep that play alive was impressive in itself. Nobody from Madison came to, because they didn't really have to. That one was going out of bounds. But just the ability of Draymond to try and keep that one in play. And then, honestly, John Lithio coming through the middle to big body the rest of the defenders. you really want to see from Chicago another couple of scores. Try and hold Madison if you can. Hold them on a number the rest of the game. It's going to be very tough because your energy reserves are waning, but you have to try and get some scores, and you have to get a stop on this possession. If you keep them under 20, it's a tall task, but at least it feels like some kind of a victory.
Madison off and running here. Well, the big storylines, I think, has been the Union's defense inability to really affect any kind of pressure on the Madison offense. This Union team came into the game ranked 4th in takeaways this season, averaging over 11 blocks per game. Here tonight, just 4.
Yeah, we haven't called Jake Ruben Miller's name at all, and he's in the top 10 in blocks, and that's just a testament as Madison going to get another score here. Pat Schreiwise coming through the middle, just almost unchecked to make that one. The Union had to play zone, and so Schreiwise came through unmarked, and they've reached that number 20.
Schreiwise getting a little chatty with the fans in the back of the end zone there. Again, this Radicals team that for years has struggled to clear that 20-goal plateau consistently. It's doing so almost every game in 2024. It's their 11th game of the season. That is the, 8th time they've cleared 20 goals here in this season. It's got to be close to a team record in the 12-game regular season format since it was adapted. Clock ticking under 3:30. Union looking to just add to their point total. Only at 11 goals here tonight. Again, scored 25 last weekend against Minnesota. Just a real Jekyll and Hyde turn of events in back-to-back weekends for the Union, which has been a little bit of their story here in 2024. In all likelihood, they're going to drop to 6-5 here tonight. Still in pole position for the 3rd seed as Shanahan with a gorgeous low-release dagger into the end zone there for Drummond. Pushes it to 12 for the Union. But the Union, they showed this promise. We know what they are when they're at full strength. And yet here tonight, after last weekend's results, it puts them back in that position of who really is this team?
It's a letdown. It's a really tough one. They hadn't been able to beat Minnesota this year. We're right on the verge of getting a tie late in their 2nd game at home. Then they go up to Minnesota and win against what I think Coach Woods and Charlie First were expecting would be, and Sarah Nolik, were expecting to be a slightly tougher roster for the wind chill. And so to come in here where a game you just need, and all the team, the coaching staff, they knew that this was an all-important game in order to possibly get a home playoff date. To have that 2nd quarter meltdown, it just takes a lot of air out of you.
The Chicago team, to your point, lost 2 games to Minnesota by a combined 3 goals before finally breaking through last weekend on the road, 25-20 against the wind chill. They also had that really impressive early season Texas road trip where they beat Houston and Austin, the reigning South Division champions, on back-to-back nights. That was a big linchpin in this Union season, and yet this loss here tonight, the home loss to Pittsburgh, there's just been some tough pills to swallow for a Union team that is, again, looking for their 5th straight playoff appearance. Gutowski going absolute slip and slide mode in the end zone. He shows absolutely no signs of slowing down.
I'll tell you what, Adam, if I can take my broadcasting hat off for a moment.
Please do.
In the Midwest, in these former Rust Belt cities, games like this mean so much because when you have those regional rivals, it's only a 2-hour-plus drive up from Chicago to Madison and a little more going to Minnesota, Indianapolis. Those games really, really feel like they mean something. Not only do you have veterans and good young talent on these teams, a lot of them, as Anthony Gutowski with that going, takes over the goal lead for the 2024 season. These games they feel like they have extra meaning for me as a fan of this sport and as a fan of sports in general. So as much as I am on this broadcast and playing it completely even, there's a part of me that wanted Chicago to show up better than they did tonight.
You can let the Chi-Town shine a little bit here.
I'm mad, man. I wanted it. I did want it.
No, I know what you mean. I very much appreciate the same thing, coming from a league perspective and as a longtime broadcaster here, I still do have that little bit of hometown Madison tilt to me, and can't lie, it's pretty nice seeing them get a win like this at home. Just over a minute left here in regulation. Radicals up 9. All but over. And some larger ladies singing here tonight at Breeze Stevens Field. Again, crowd sticking through the absolute final whistle. I know it's been a tradition here for the entirety of this franchise's existence to have people congregate on the field after the game, but it is just so cool to see how invested these fans here are. And not only the Radicals, but to your point, I think the UFA in general.
Definitely.
Chicago gets their 13th and maybe final score here tonight.
And to my point, because I know that the guys are able to watch these games back, and it's been great support at home in Chicago. They wanted this game as much as I did, if not more. And it's going to hurt these losses. They stick with you, and that's going to go into their final game next weekend against Detroit. But it's tough, and they know that it's tough because they had the chance to, take control of their destiny, as we talked about during this broadcast. And I think that one is going to be one that they study. But it's interesting, watching both of these teams that had down years last year, they've come on so strong this season, and they've had big wins like this one Madison has tonight. They've had tough losses. I'm so excited to see what happens when we pull the cover off in 2025. These teams could be crazy good.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of youth and development in the Central Division, so it's really a mystery as to which team's going to kind of leapfrog the others and really invest in that internal R&D, right?
Yeah, and I mean, so much of it depends not on contracts as they do in other leagues, but, where guys get posted for jobs, what opportunities come open in their field. But it's a testament to Tim DeBile and Dave Woods and the organizations, both of these teams, in their recruiting and what they've been able to do in terms of getting quality talent on their teams, as that's going to be the final horn.
And that will wrap up the 21-13 crushing blow defeat of Madison to their rivals from Chicago. Madison proving to 7-4, taking over the driver's seat for the second seed in the Central Division. Chicago slipping to 6-5. Madison will meet Indianapolis here next Friday night in another WatchUFA.tv premiere event for a potential playoff positioning. Chicago will face Detroit, looking to make their 5th straight playoff appearance, but you're going to want to tune in here for the Madison Radicals broadcast as they look to clinch their first postseason appearance since the 2018 year when they won the title here on the Isthmus. That'll do it here up in the booth for me and Chris. Once again, I thank you so much for my guest broadcaster as well as the entire production here tonight. That'll do it for Friday Night Ultimate Frisbee. We've got one more weekend of UFA regular season action. Be sure to tune in. See you soon.
This Sunday night, the first round of the UFA playoffs conclude with Chicago and Madison colliding for a spot in the Central Division Final. The Radicals ready to rock in front of their loyal fans, and the Union looking to spoil the party at Breeze Stevens Field. Opening poll set for 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 o'clock Central. Broadcast exclusively on WatchUFA.tv.